Hello, beautiful people. You are listening to the Communal Table podcast, part of Food and Wine Pro. I'm your host, Kat Kinsman, senior editor at Food and Wine, and I'm so excited about today's guest because she is an incredible chef with 2 Michelin stars and just a shining example for the industry. And she has also used her platform of social media to talk about some stuff that I think needs to be talked about in order to keep the next generation of chefs happy, healthy in the industry. Welcome, Emma Bengtsson.
Well, thank you.
Emma, you just completely rebooted your restaurant.
Yes, we got a total remake.
Oh my gosh. So what does that entail? And I want to get to a particular part of that, but you're talking. This is a classic dining room that has been around. What, 86? Was it
87?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so this exquisite dining room, like big waterfall. I remember going there the first time and like being so dazzled by this thing. I remember going out to lunch there and thinking, this is how fancy people eat. So I mean, it's a dining room that has been, or multi-dining rooms that has been in the hearts of New Yorkers and people from around the globe for a long time. So what happened?
First of all, I really wish I could have seen that waterfall because there's so many people who come through the door who just talks about it that at one point I was like, I'm just going to buy a little waterfall and just put it here. So if they say anything, I'm just going to point and see, we have our own waterfall. Just a little one, but it's here.
Yeah.
But it was about time. Over 30 years old and everything felt a little bit dated and felt like it was time to move forward and move into a new era of Aquavit and it needed that facelift. It needed something to happen to it. So I really wanted an open kitchen to start. Yeah. So we pushed that through and it just came out to this enormous windows into basically you can see everything.
Oh my
which is
no pressure.
Bad right now.
Like, how has that changed the dynamic of how the kitchen goes? Because I've seen so many different kinds of kitchen energy, but those ones where you can see into it, it's hypnotic for a viewer, and I know that's got to be a different dynamic than you're used to. How do you retrain your team to deal with that energy of like, okay, now you're part of the show?
I wasn't super worried because I've always run a kitchen where it's very calm. It's very soothing. There's not a lot of shouting or yelling. It's very mesmerizing almost to watch. So it was almost at that point where it was fun to see if we could push it a little bit further and just have that energy between the cooks and the guests as well, and having them be able to feel like they're part of it as much as we are, who actually gets to go out and say hi to the guests. So it's really nice to be able to see the interaction between the cooks and the guests as well, especially when they come up to the window and like, hello.
Oh my, so there is glass between.
There is glass between, yes.
Sometimes you see this completely open kitchens and it's almost awkward sometimes because like you feel like you're seeing something really private. So with this, let's talk about the energy of your kitchen because that's something that I really love observing, and I'm always very, very conscious to not, interfere. I always feel like I'm standing in the wrong place, but like, I've stood and watched like Danielle's kitchen, Stone Barns, like Gunter Seeger, all these different kitchens, and some of them are very like, we're chef, and some of them are sort of more relaxed than that. So let's talk about like, what does that look like in your kitchen?
Nothing is loud. Like if it's almost like in the dining room, if someone drops a pan, it's like everyone stops and stare at you. And they're like, you're breaking the spell. I'm not supposed to do this. So it's like you kind of are starting to have that dynamic that you have in the front of the room, in the back. And I think all of that comes with people being secure enough to work in that kind of environment. And it's hard for some people coming in and that can't handle having that not really that strictness to it. But we do, yes, chef, and we do we do talk, but it's very low key and not yelling.
Yeah, I'm always so surprised by that very like brigade, like when it's even the cadence is the same. It's so militaristic. Wait, chef, like exactly like that. So how does that change somebody's energy? Do you feel like? Because I know that in some of those kitchens that are more sort of raucous, rock and roll kind of kitchens, or just ones where they're hidden from the public and there's a lot of screaming abusiveness or whatever that, you know, may or may not be personal or not. You know, there are all different kinds of kitchens that it's hard to shake that energy at the end of the night. And, you know, people might go out of there like really internalizing that and feel like they have to go and do something to dispel that. If you're in somewhere that there is that kind of mesmerizing energy, do you feel like that has had an effect on how people leave at the end of the night, what their general kind of well-being is almost?
I would hope it's towards the better. And I think ever since I started in that environment myself, it has become better. No one really goes out and drink after work. I don't think I've seen anyone during my 5 years really be hangover the next day. It's very, very rare. And it's just nice to be able to have where they go home and they feel good at the end of the night and they can actually go to sleep and come back the next day rested. And it's something that we work very, very much towards, that you should work 5 days a week. You should be able to manage your station. You should be able to have 2 days off, have a weekend off, or be able to spend time with your family and loved ones if you want to as well. So
it feels like so much of kitchen culture is looking at that and trying to figure out how to do that. Did you come from a background like that? Or is that something that you've had to teach yourself and then teach the people around you? That, like, how much convincing of yourself and others have you had to do with that?
I always think of myself as being so lucky. My first restaurant I ever worked in, I was there for almost 5 years. And
where was that?
Edsbacka Krog. It was outside of Stockholm, a little, almost like a barn situation, 45 seats, 2 Michelin. So it's still very high end, but everyone who was there was family. Most people stayed 5-10 years, which is very rare in the restaurant industry to do. But they always, even if you worked a lot, they always took care of each other. And it was always that mentality that everyone is equally worth. And I've always carried that with me for every workplace I've gone to, where I don't step into a kitchen if it makes me feel humiliated or bad, or, I mean, they're hard.
Yeah.
And
this is not an easy
job. It will tear on you, but
Yeah.
I never wanted to feel that extra push down. So I've always looked towards kitchen where I felt that I belonged and where I felt respected. So it's kind of like been my path to just steer towards the restaurants where I feel good.
So this is something I've been trying to figure out for years, where this mindset has come from and the sort of toxicity that has invaded the industry. And a lot of people have said it comes down from this sort of French lineage of this kind of system that was abusive, and then it sort of metastasized in various places. Do you think there's anything about a particularly Swedish kitchen where that was your first exposure, that there's something cultural, that there is something in the lineage of Swedish restaurants that instilled in you this mentality of balance, of care?
I'm not sure if it has. I think it just has more to do with the head chef who's leading it, and how he is interpreted his way of teaching and cooking. So I don't think it's really that much of a cultural thing. I think it's just how you are brought up, who your mentor was, and you kind of tend to absorb that, and then you bring that along with you. So I think it's very important, especially for the newer generation now, to take that opportunity and like start over and go like, we can do it this way too. Right. It works.
So while you were the restaurant, you had to close the restaurant to do this. So the last time I saw you in person, you were about to have some time off for the first time in your life. And I was asking you, what are you going to do? How are you going to do this? And you were a little bit deer in the headlights, like, I don't know. So, and also sort of twinned with this, you made a really extraordinary, I'm still so grateful for this Instagram post that you made where you showed a picture of yourself as a little kid. And when we put this up online, if it's okay, I'll embed this Instagram
Sure.
post because I think it was so special. A picture of you as a little kid, and then you like in a hospital bed, and saying when you were little, you thought of yourself as Super Emma who could go and do anything, which you are. You remain Super Emma to this day, but along the way, you broke your body. Doing this and through kitchen work, through the gruelingness of this, and you wrote this incredible thing about specifically to young cooks, like telling them to take care of themselves young. Can you talk through that whole journey and then taking some time off that had to be totally foreign to you?
Sure. I've been stubborn my entire life, and I've always wanting to prove that I'm as good as or better than what I can do, and that I can do this. So asking for help has never been in my genes. So I've pushed myself through. I've been in the industry for almost 20 years now, and lifting 50-pound bags and heavy pots and not doing it correctly, and all of that wear and tear on a body where I've already was an elite gymnast as a young age.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Kind of just broke it down even more. So slowly throughout the years, I fractured my lower spine, and been living with that for probably 3 years now.
That's so much pain to live with.
Yes.
Back, if people haven't had back injuries, they might not understand how debilitating that is. I've had a few back things that luckily have gotten to be corrected, but my God, it informs absolutely everything about everything you do.
Yes. It's just, it came to that point where I couldn't ignore it any longer, which is also something I'm very good at.
It's amazing how much we can put up with.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So it came at a perfect time. Closing the restaurants, I got my surgery done.
And can you say what the surgery was, if you feel comfortable?
Yeah, so I had a T-lift, laminectomy, transfusion, something.
Okay. I'll pretend like I know what that is.
I got between my L5 and my S1, they took away the side bones and put 2 rods and screws. And yeah, I am, right?
That's so
Terminator.
exciting. Do you have to have special screening?
Every other year.
But I mean, like through
Oh,
TSA,
no,
you don't.
no.
Okay.
No,
Just
fine.
Yeah, because I've seen friends have to go through that, and it's always a reminder that, oh crap, this kind of thing, and it's always like a little bit.
Yeah, no, I got some new things in me. They said it's a new technology and a new metal that just come up for the last couple of years, so I don't have to worry about anything like that anymore.
That's so great. How do you feel?
I feel great.
Oh, good.
It's, I mean, I still have my 1 to 2 scale of pain at the end of a long work day, but living in that agony that I did before, where it was just like, okay, go and cry for 5 minutes and then I'll go back at it, and then a couple of hours later I was like, okay, I can do this, and then
It's amazing. Like you make these little goalposts. I can get to this. Yeah, okay. Like, and then you get further. But then do you feel like you had to hide that from the people around you? Could they see it? How did you negotiate that at work? Did people know something was going on?
Where I am now, yes.
Okay.
I've hidden it very well in my past or my previous works, but I've never felt that I needed to hide anything where I am now or at Aquavit. It's been to that point where I was almost pushed by everyone to like go and do the surgery or like get it done. Like, so it was, the support has been amazing, and they've all been backing me up, and not allowed to lift anything anymore. They yell at me as soon as I try.
Good.
So.
Good. I want you yelled at. It's so hard to accept help. It really is, like, and that comes about in all different ways, whether it's lifting something heavy, whether it's saying to somebody like, I'm not doing okay, like whatever that is. It's really, really hard. But I've been so terrible at it most of my life, and just in the past year, I've realized the power of it, because it lets somebody else take care of you, and that's a gift. Like, they get to feel like I mean, this is a thing I see with chefs all the time. You are taking care of people, you're taking care of diners, you're taking care of your team. I ran into Emma in the lobby on the way in, and she's on her phone and trying to solve a problem like this morning. And a chef's life is never done, and people think it's standing behind a stove. It's also being on your phone. It's all these, and it's the emotional care of the people who are on your team. So how big is your team?
So we're roughly around 20 in the kitchen, and then probably around 35, 40 in front of the house.
Yeah, I mean,
give or take. Yeah,
that is a lot of people, and you are expected to be, a lead, obviously, with the cuisine, but also
and a mom.
Yeah, an emotional lead on all of this stuff. I mean, it's amazing now when I see some of the young chefs in kitchens. I'm like, you look like a baby. It's amazing. And I think, like, God bless you. Like, do you know what's in front of you? And they're really lucky to have people like you who, again, that Instagram post just really, really hit me, because I see some chefs who are now in their like 30s, 40s, 50s who are saying like, you know what, my knees are not great, and here's how I could have prevented that. And hey, person fresh out of school or whatever, who's like 21, if you don't do this now.
Yeah. I yell at them all the time. I say, like, don't lift the pot that way. Bend your knees.
Yeah.
I was like, you're going to regret it. Trust me. I know it.
And hands too. Wrists are such a thing. So I hadn't known that you were an elite gymnast too. So I'm so curious about, because you have to be so body conscious with all of that, and you have to like limber up to do things. You have to ice out. You have to do, all of these things and take care of it. And then you also have to push through the pain. How did the discipline of that, how does that cross over with the discipline that you have to have in the kitchen?
I think so. I mean, I've always been very independent. I've always competed a lot. Mm-hmm. I was a gymnast up till I was 15.
What was your particular favorite?
The double bars.
Wow.
So I love to do that.
I want to see video of this. This is amazing.
But I've also competed a lot in horseback riding.
Oh my God.
So I did that at the same time, almost up till I was 18.
Wow.
On a national level too. So it kind of like I was always in my world and like doing my thing and always pushing myself to be better and do better. So I think when all of that's, when I started a restaurant or starting to become a cook, I had to say goodbye to that, because that took all my energy. And ever since then, I've always focused everything of my life has always gone into whatever it is I'm doing. So it just took that leading part from my sports.
So when then all of a sudden you're in a position where you're recovering from surgery and you have to kind of be there and do nothing.
It was so hard.
Yes. So can we talk through what that looked like? Because there's a big push now. There's a book that I keep meaning to read called The Art of Doing Nothing, and I've just started recently trying to meditate and having, push everything sort of out and just focus on myself. It's really, really hard.
Yes.
It's so, if you're a person who is used to doing and producing. So how did you negotiate that emotionally? Like, what did you do?
It was hard. I mean, I was on house arrest for like a month.
House arrest.
Driving my boyfriend insane.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy. I wasn't allowed to leave. If I had to go for a walk, he has to come with me, and it was something that I was like, oh my God, I'm so looking forward to this.
Yeah.
I get to stay home and sleep.
Watch Netflix.
One weekend, I was like, I can't do this. And I couldn't do anything either. Like, I couldn't clean or everything like that was too hard. So it's just, it was painful.
Yeah. So how did you fill the time?
Luckily, it was summer. So I tried to like just sit on the balcony. I have a tendency of spacing away when I'm outside. So that was something that helped me. If I can't be in a park or in the nature, then at least I could sit outside. So that was something that helped me a lot. I don't know how I filled the time. Annoying people. Like,
were you just like
demanding
texting
people to come around. I was like, you off tonight? You want to come by?
And I'm sure they did because you were beloved. That's a really intense thing. And especially missing the physicality of being in a kitchen. It's such a physical job. And I don't know if people always know that it's so much motion, it's so much physical effort, it's this constant sort of flow and flurry of things, and then to have to be still is such a hard thing to do.
But I think I convinced my doctor to let me go back as long as I didn't work.
So you were just like there in the restaurant.
I was just standing, or they would roll up a chair so I could just sit in the middle of the restaurant. I was just like, okay, this is better. I can at least
you're like back in your cocoon. So then, when you were doing all this, you were revamping some menu things as well. Did you like how much sort of refiguring of any menu or service or anything like that happened while the remodeling of the restaurant was going on? What changed?
So we had a couple of months to actually figure out. Before renovation, we used to have one menu for lunch, one menu for dinner, where the lunch was more towards classic, bigger dishes, Swedish traditional, like the herring, the meatballs, gravlax.
I remember that's the first place I ever had roll mops, and so I always think about that.
And then dinner came around, and we just flipped everything upside down and turned it into 15-course chef's tasting.
Wow.
That had nothing to do with lunch. And it kind of created this riff, not only between the cooks, because it was like, I want to only do dinner service. I don't want to do the lunch. Or it was hard to flip. And then it just became like this weird dynamic to figure it out. So with the renovation, we actually decided to split and really realize that we're trying to do two restaurants in one concept. Okay. So we rebuilt. We had giant premises. So the whole bar area that wasn't really anything before more than a lounge is now turned into more of a casual dining area where you can come in and you can get your herring and you can get your meatballs and yummy desserts and share everything. And then dining room was kept more towards what we do on our tasting menu, but on more of an broader spectrum. So you can order more for lunch. You don't have to lock yourself into a chef. You can do a 2 or a 3 course pre-fee and see a little bit more what's going on.
Do you have separate teams then, or do people switch teams? How does that? What's the dynamic of that?
So everyone switches.
Okay.
And that's something I would say when you come on board, you are expected to do everything. You do banquet, you do bar, lunch, dinner, and then normally you do 2-week rotation. So you still get a little bit of security. If you work AM, you do that for 2 weeks. But it have turned out much better to be able to have that camaraderie between everyone, because everyone is starting to learn every station, so that if anyone is going down, you can step in, you can help. The more seasoned cooks step in and help the younger kids so they get their stuff done. So it's nice to see that it's actually functioning in the direction that we wanted it to go.
That's really cool. And with service, is there a different tone in the service in the couple of different spaces?
The energy is definitely different because you have in the dining room, you have the window right where you're cooking.
Right.
So you're a little bit more mellow. And then in the back, where the banquet is, it's more mellow, and then that push comes where 80 plates has to go and it's boom boom boom, and like it gets a little bit loud, and then it's done. It's out, and then it quiets down again. So it's definitely, you see that different dynamics between it.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like if you're a server and you're dealing with this, like if you're having the people who are having like casual night out as opposed to like, you know, a fancier kind of thing, like that's got to be fun for them to be able to switch that up.
Yeah, and that's what we thought too, because we've been talking about it with my my head chef and my sous chef. We're like, you don't want to get stuck in a station for 6 months waiting to transfer up somewhere else. And that just turns out boring. You want to, at least in our point of view, you want to learn everything. You want to soak up everything you can. And if it takes you 6 months to leave a station to go somewhere else, that's not fun. At least not in my point of view. But
I think like having that variety of experiences is really important. And then it gives people the opportunity, you know, I keep talking with people about this. Then if somebody calls out, you have the opportunity to step up and like really show yourself. And I think that's a really important thing, to give people a chance to succeed in all different things. I think that's a really important thing to be able to do. And also you have one of the few kitchens in New York where people can learn Swedish food.
Yeah.
That's, I love this about you. That I was, I was doing my homework and stuff, and I realized you didn't go through any of the French stuff. You didn't go through Italian, whatever.
I have no idea what it is even.
I think that's so great, because like I have this ongoing conversation with our restaurant editor, Kush Bouchard, and she was like, how did French end up being the end all be all this kind of stuff? People think, oh, you have to have this foundation of stuff. I'm like, Mexican is just as great and complicated, and Swedish is, and all this stuff. So how did that happen? I think that's so great.
I mean, the French obviously influenced Sweden back in the 80s or 70s, something like that, when they came over and took over. But it's also so fun to go back into the basic of Scandinavian cuisine, where you actually are figuring out that the brining, curing, smoking, pickling, all of those things are coming from other regions, and they are the ones that like are the technique and the foundation of how we cook. And it's just fun. The more you explore it, you start realizing that Japan has very fundamental techniques to what we have, and it's like there's just countries all over where I always get lost in people saying like, oh, this new technique. I was like, it's not new.
It's incredibly old.
It's the oldest thing ever. It's like, and so it's just fun to see that in different cuisines, that you have those ideas, because it's ideas about how to cook to survive.
Yeah, it's so much of this is poor people food and people dealing with incredibly varying weather patterns. And, I was sort of behind the curve and falling in love with Scandinavian and sort of new Nordic and all that. But over the past few years, as I've gotten to travel more, I've been blown away by the food. I was in Norway just a few months ago, and I was, the techniques that they were using on the fish were things that I had just really not gotten to experience before. I had never had some of the ingredients before, and I was thinking, this is all I want in my life now. And to taste, I met a dairy farmer. He has 5 cows and only does butter for a Credo restaurant in Trondheim, and it's the best butter I've ever had in my life. And I thought I could go to my grave only eating like this sourdough and like covered with this butter. It was such an incredible thing. And I've only been to Sweden for about 12 hours ever. I went to Malmo for like a few hours. And I loved it. I want to go back, but it's such a different, like, sort of, it's like seeing a color I hadn't seen before, and then all of a sudden figuring out like, oh, that's how it fits into the rainbow of like everything else. And I've loved it so much, and it's been kind of, like you said, like hilarious to see people like discovering all of this. And what's been your favorite thing to see people like sort of adopt, and you were like, that's the thing we did as a kid? Or has there been something in particular where you like have watched people do that and you're like, what, this has been around forever?
Wow. I think, I mean, one of the last trends that ever came, I think, was fermentation and things like that. And it's also one of those things like my grandma did that at home. It's just, it's not new, but it's fun to see that like more and more restaurants are picking up on these things, because a lot of these techniques that we are doing in the Nordic is to preserve everything. Mm-hmm. So if this can mean that there's less food waste and there's less things going in the garbage, I would love to see more of that. So that's like, it's a way of keeping the summer with you throughout the winter as well, and keeping that produce staying with you longer instead of importing it from halfway around the world. I think if we can just do more of that up here in the north, where we don't really get that those ingredients during winter, I think that's a win for everyone.
Those dark months are tough. they really, really are, and nobody's better at it than the Scandinavians. I have to say, like, I get the lack of light, and the you go to the farmer's market and it's all just the same apples and potatoes that it's been for a long time. So to get to go somewhere and see something that's preserved, it's like sunshine in a jar. Like, right. It's such like a truly beautiful thing. But also I think it's really important in this particular day and age, because we're facing so many climate challenges, to be able to really figure out, really preserve the seasons while they're still around. It's such a challenging thing right now, because there was a day this weekend where it was almost 70 degrees.
Yes.
And I almost like reached out, and I was too tired or something like that, but I almost reached out to farmer friends of mine to ask, like, what impact is this going to have on your crops this year? This is
going to be horrible.
Yeah, because something probably thought like, it's time to start blooming today. Probably a fruit tree of some sort got fooled in mid-January, and it's going to freeze off in a week or two, and then we're not going to have that crop for this year.
Yeah.
Do you find that sort of where you grew up, that people were very conscious of eating in a seasonal way more than we have traditionally been in the States?
I mean, I think when growing up as well, we only really ate things that came from the local situation.
Yeah.
Like, I think the most we would maybe venture out was lemons.
Where did those come from?
But a lot of things, it wasn't really something that we were looking for. I don't never go and buy strawberries in December. It doesn't really fit for what I think it's appropriate. And I think that's something that's always been with me from being a kid, that it's winter, you eat root vegetables.
Right.
And plenty.
Oh, so many rutabagas and all of those things, and you just become that. I always feel like I get gray in the winter, like inside and out. And I actually have one of those lights on my desk, one of those blue lights that mimics sunshine. Because I just need to have that, and I have to keep my mood up during that time, because that is really, really hard.
It is.
So that's kind of amazing. Now I have this image of you in the summer planting yourself out on your balcony, like to get sunlight, like while you're recovering from that. So when you were saying you were reaching out to friends and having them come by and stuff like that, was that hard for you, or was that sort of just like, okay, here I'm going with it now? Is that something you would have done before?
Not really.
Yeah.
I love all my friends and spending time with them, but I'm also very a loner, or I've lived my whole life doing my things and so tightly in a ball that I'm not the person who like have to go out and do things all the time. I'm very happy just doing nothing for hours. But when I get to that point where it's just a whole lot of nothing, it's really nice to have people who care about you, who's there for you. So
and chefs' brains
are wired differently.
It is you're wired in a very particular way. I often use the word masochist. It's always like, oh, this thing is hard. How do I make it harder on myself? There's never the how do I make this easier on myself? There's never the thing. It's sort of, and it's also this sort of altruistic thing. It's like, oh, I have some downtime. How do I help somebody else while I'm doing them? Which is why this makes chefs into like tremendous do-gooders and people who promote charities and do all of this kind of stuff. And it also means you're called on a lot to do that kind of stuff. I don't always know if people realize like how much chefs are called on to take part in all these. And I see you taking part in all these things. Like, so what part of kind of the DNA of a restaurant is taken up with that kind of charitable work? Because I know it ends up being a lot.
I think we all do as much as we can, and it's heartbreaking when you have to turn down fundraisers or different dinners and things like that. But there's only so much you can do without not losing yourself at the restaurant.
Oh my God,
so
it's so hard.
I try and focus towards specific ones that I'm very heavily invested and I try and do as much as I can for the causes that are very dear to my heart, and then just do as much as I can.
It seems like every chef I know is like has so much of that built in, and the thing is like you're a particular target of this because 2 Michelin stars there. Hey. And you have recently maintained those, yes?
Yes.
Okay. That's incredible. And that is an astonishing accomplishment. I mean, 1 is whoa. 2 is a really, really stunning thing. There are not that many in New York and not that many in the US in general or the world and stuff, and then you are one of the few in New York who has 2 stars. Let's talk about the pressure of that, because it puts a lot of eyes on you, and it's the maintenance of that, because it's I know that there are a lot of chefs who are starting to think, do I opt out of this system? Can I say no to Michelin? Can you people respectfully ask, like, take me out of the guide? You can't really do that. You've seen people try. You saw the chef in France recently try to sue Michelin to try to figure out why he had been demoted. But it's this extra layer. Is it a thing that you think about, or is it just a thing that in the course of the way that you happen to run your restaurant, you happen to run a 2 Michelin star restaurant? How much conscious thought do you put into this?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, obviously the pressure's there, you think about it all the time, and it's kind of unsurreal. Like, I've worked with people who had 2 Michelin stars. I never really in my life thought that I would be one of them, especially growing up as a pastry chef. It's like, you're the pastry chef, you're never really there. Like, it's always the head chef, and then the pastry chef is there pushing, but it's never really about them. So it wasn't really anything that was on my mind that much. So I think when it comes down to it, what I try and put in my mantra every single day is just, this is what I love to do. This is what I'm pushing towards, and I want everyone to be happy. Everyone who comes through the door, I want them to have the best experience they can ever have. And it breaks my heart when someone isn't. And I wish I could fix it. And it's just so hard in this day and age to make everyone happy. Like, everyone has obviously their own taste profiles and their own idea of what you're supposed to be. And I think that's the hardest part with the Michelin star, is that people are coming in with over the moon expectations, and you're trying to say, like, look, I'm still only human, and I'm doing my best here, And I really hope that all of that hard work is being pushed towards you to enjoy it, or like, I can't think of the American word for it, but like where you can see and feel and understand and love what I do. And at the day when it comes down to it, it's a restaurant where this is my niche. We do Scandinavian. We do a lot of seafood. And it's called a chef's tasting for a reason. And I'm doing my best to please everyone at it. But the pressure is always there. But it's not so much the critics and the Michelin and all of that is always there. But at the end of the day, it's the people who come back.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that I'm cooking for. And those are the ones that are the most important in a restaurant life for me.
I always wonder when people come in and they're being snotty on Yelp or whatever it is, like how much of that comes out of nerves from a diner? Like, 'cause I've definitely seen people go into a restaurant where they come in intimidated. It's nothing that the restaurant did whatsoever. They just come in with this nervousness or something, and they're going to carry that with them, so they feel that being overly critical is somehow protecting them. Like, well, if I'm critical first, then then obviously I belong here. Like it's sort of this discomfort, and because people aren't necessarily going to have a frame of reference about the kind of cooking that you are doing, I wonder if there's sort of an extra learning curve there, because they've been to a French restaurant, they've been to an Italian restaurant, they've been to whatever. They might not have been to a Swedish restaurant just because there aren't a lot, especially in the.
And it is a different flavor profile for sure.
Yeah.
So it's hard to show and breach that gap in understanding of what it is that we do. So
I feel like the only other place that I'd had food like that is, I feel like there's like some sort of cultural institution that has a cafeteria. It's like a Swedish cultural institution. I forget what it is, but it's somewhere in the city, and I don't know if they still do it, but for a while they were doing lunch, and that was really the only other place other than your restaurant where I'd had this kind of food. And I just still, I think about those flavors so vividly, and it's such a special thing. But if you don't sort of know what you're in for and just leave yourself open to the process, like that's kind of always what I've said to friends who were maybe a little bit nervous about going into a restaurant where they're feeling like, I even feel this, and I do this thing for a living, and I still sometimes go into restaurants and think like they're gonna know that I'm just riffraff. And then I realize I just have to give myself over to the enjoyment of this.
It took me a lot of years to get to that point where I can just go like, I'm going in, I'm going to have a good time, and I'm not going to find every fault that I can find. Like, this is not why I'm here.
The busman's holiday.
Because growing up as a cook, you kind of learn to like point out all the bad things that you have to do better. Like, that's how you kind of learn being in the kitchen. Yeah. But then when you go out and dine, you kind of have to like stop looking for mistakes. Yeah. Because that's not why you're here. It's just going to ruin your night. You're here to enjoy the food and have a good time, and like not be critical was a really hard switch to turn off in the beginning.
Are you able to, is that easier at different kinds of restaurants than like if you go into a 2 or 3 star Michelin place, like
it's harder.
I'm thinking, because you're probably thinking like, okay, what are they doing that we're not? What are we doing that they're not? Like that kind of, I mean, as an athlete and as a competitor, you probably always have that kind of switch.
And I think that's why you see more and more, but you hear about chefs actually not really going when they go out to Michelin restaurants. They pick the level that are good food, relaxing, not so uptight kind of restaurants. And then it's always, because I get asked a lot like, oh, where do you go and eat? And I was like, oh, if I can just go to my local restaurant and have pizza, I'm happy. Right. It's the best pizza ever. But,
where is it? Where do you go?
I go up in Harlem. It's called Babalucci.
Babalucci. Okay,
No.
good to know. This is good to tip from Emma to go to Babalucci. So it's such an interesting thing, like how sort of chefs eat on their time off, and they're all just like getting ramen or getting pizza or getting whatever. Or what you were telling me before we got on mic, and I think this is really cool that you were.
I'm not saying everyone should go and do that.
Well, we were saying like I was sort of confessing I get too much takeout and it shows up with too much plastic, but you were saying you made a New Year's resolution not to bring plastic into the home.
Yes.
What's that look like?
I mean, I lived a life where Amazon was my best friend.
Yeah. Especially if you're stuck at home for a while.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, that kind of, I've stopped using it because of how they just ship everything.
Yeah. Worker treatment.
But I think the hardest part is there's so much plastic that are not recyclable, and a lot of it just goes in the garbage or in the water, and it doesn't end up being recycled. And even the plastic that can be recycled is not really being done in a proper way. So having to just realize how much plastic I have in my house, just like in the shower, all the products in the bathroom, in the kitchen, cleaning products.
So much.
And I'm just trying to, before I run out of old stuff, to come up with new ideas, or like, okay, maybe I can start cleaning with vinegar and water. And do I need that body wash? Can I just use a soap? And little things like that, just trying to like slowly switch over everything I have into more of a sustainable lifestyle. I think every little thing that every person can do is a step in the right direction. So
I've tried to sort of go through the makeup that I have, and and I'm looking through and I'm like, why do I have all these hotel shampoos, and like bundle them up and like bring them to a shelter, and that kind of thing, and just like getting rid of some of the clutter in my life. It's that's been pretty intense. And I know New York City is about to do a plastic bag ban. That is
fantastic.
Oh my God.
Waiting for that to happen.
Because I try to have a bag with me, but some stuff just shows up in plastic bags, or somehow it's the default, or like you're about to catch it and they've already put something in a plastic bag, and I end up with this giant amount of plastic bags that I bring. Luckily, the CVS near me has a place where you can go in and drop off all your plastic bags, and they recycle them. They do something with them. But just the mass of that in my apartment. I was actually made myself a little project recently where I went through all my like tote bags, just like my woven tote bags, and I was just cleaning them all out. And I was like, I have like 20 tote bags. I have no excuse for not having a tote bag on me at all times. It's kind of amazing to figure out just like those little steps that you can take. So how much of this has made it into the restaurant?
As much as I can. I'm pushing towards. We stopped using plastic straws, and I'm almost harassing my work colleagues about like, oh, you bring a plastic bottle in, don't buy that. They come in glass. But it's a harder project because it has to go through different lines. It's not my restaurant. So obviously I'm pushing towards as much as I can, and everyone is on board. So little by little, everything have started to change. How we do it and how we recycle as well is very, very important. So we're getting there.
It's really, and New York City does not always make it easy for this. They don't make it easy with leftover food. Sometimes like there are some great organizations that are trying to help with that gap between sort of restaurants and homeless organizations. It's that there are people doing really powerful work. But New York City government makes it really difficult a lot of the time. But I am grateful for people like you who are really being super conscious and intentional about this kind of thing. This restaurant that you are in charge of has a very long life, and you were the steward of it, and that's a really amazing and incredible thing. And there's a lineage of people who have made their mark on this restaurant. what do you, and I know like you're young, so so I know legacy is a hard word. What do you want your legacy at Aquavit to be, and what do you want it to be just as a chef in the world?
Wow.
The tiny questions.
Little question.
We specialize in the tiny questions here.
I think when it comes to Aquavit, I always feel that I want to be one of the chefs who are remembered.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's a lot of chefs who are owing their career to Aquavit and everything it's done for them. So I want to be one of those chefs that they remember.
I think I am here to tell you are.
And I want to be the person where someone comes in 20 years from now and they go, "Oh, is Emma in the kitchen?" And they go like, "No, she haven't been here for the last 10 years.
She's on her island. She's on a cruise." She's like.
So I want to be remembered for bringing Aquavit forward and for really putting my name on the mark there.
Yeah.
For the future and for me, I don't know. I was thinking lately a lot about, I'm getting more and more of these questions like, what do you want to do? What's the future? What's your dreams? I'm always been so scared of dreaming.
Yes.
I've always been in this mindset that you can't be disappointed if you don't have that dream. So I'm trying to like be appreciated of the day I have and the life I have now, and just be happy in the moment, because you never know what the future brings, and you can't push off too much. Like, I'm always scared that if I decide that this is something I really want to do, but in 10 years from now, and then I never get there, or I won't. I mean, I'm going dark here now, but
no,
if an accident happens, or if something immobilizes me, or I can't do it, then I don't want to have to wait till I retire or till I get a certain age to do something. So I try and not think too much about tomorrow. I want to think about today.
Yeah.
And maybe tonight. But not too much about the future. I think the universe has its way of figuring out what it wanted to do with me. It always had. So I'll be happy either way, I think, whatever I do in my life.
That's a really nice way to look at it. And there's sort of a question I ask everybody, because I like to put it out there, because it's sort of like asking the universe or asking anybody who is listening to this to help. And I know we've said not great at asking for help. What is there something, even though you're saying you're sort of afraid to want things or whatever, what is something where a thing that you want for yourself that other people could help you get there? This thing, because you put a lot of energy into like being a mom for your team and taking care of this incredible restaurant and healing your body and making this incredible food and taking care of the diners. What is a thing for you that somebody else could be like, oh wait, hey, I have a way to help her out with that?
Oh wow. I don't know. That's also like I come from a line of women who don't ask for things.
maybe this is a chance to like bully yourself a little bit, or have somebody else come in and be like, well, actually, for me, it's sleep personally. I really am very bad at it, and I'm trying to get much better at it. Yeah. And so I sort of put that out there about like, how do I get better at this? And somebody will always end up like, tweeting at me, well, have you tried this thing? And like, there's so many great things out there. So
it's true.
Yeah. So,
I don't know. I need to figure out a new way of taking care of myself, I think, on my days off. Like I used to go to the gym. I used to do a lot of dancing. I used to do a lot of those things, but I think I need a new adventure. I need to figure out something new that I can do while still in PT. So not full on, but I think that's something that I'm trying to figure out as of the moment. Something fun that inspires me in my days off.
I think you're gonna make pottery. You're gonna make the dish.
Pottery, maybe that is it.
We were actually sort of joking beforehand about like making the dishes for the restaurant and all that. Maybe that's what you do.
Yeah. I never thought about that. Maybe that is.
And sell them also, like whatever you don't use for the restaurant, like sell them. I think there is this amazing wave of people having all this stuff like custom made for their restaurant. I think that would be really, really cool. And the thing is, I know that if you made these, they would be so kick-ass. You would make them so amazingly. That is, I think that's a good place.
Yeah, that's what I need to look into.
Yeah. Okay, people. Find a pottery class. So I have some questions that I ask everybody, and the list has sort of been growing as people like on the team have been like, hey, could you ask about this kind of thing? So have you ever cried in the walk-in?
I've cried everywhere.
Yay!
Everywhere you can find a space that no one else is in, I've cried there.
And have you found people crying in the walk-in?
Yes,
And
I have.
Why is it such a great space for crying?
I think the coolness and the temperature, it's kind of like it relaxes your nerves.
Yeah.
And I always say that, I mean, most of the times I've cried has been out of frustration.
Yeah.
And it's my way of like getting my anger out.
Yeah.
So I think just that like that coldness kind of like makes your nerves starts to like relax, and then you breathe it out a couple of times and you're like, okay, I'm at it again. I can do this.
I love that, the sort of healing power of that. That's really cool. Our editor Meg Soul wanted me to ask people, I love this question. What is your go-to cookbook? What has been the long time one, and what are one or two like more recent ones from the last year or two?
I'm a really fan of Magnus, the Nordic cookbook.
Oh, it's such a great book.
It's falling apart in my office.
Yeah.
Wow. I have so many old Swedish cookbooks.
Yeah.
That there's like that era of Werner Vögler used to be.
I don't know.
A great chef back in the days. He's one of the first ones who brought the French cuisine over. It's just fun to see and read and see where the cuisine is taking us.
Oh yeah,
and the plating and the like little heart dots in the sauces.
Oh my god, I love looking at like 80s and 90s food styling. I have these bound versions of like the best of Food and Wine from 70s, 80s, 90s. Oh my god, the photography is so amazing. I love that stuff. So is there a particular book of that people could like go and look for on not Amazon?
I can't remember the title of it.
Okay.
No,
but I'll look up the chef. That's really cool. What is the toughest job in a restaurant?
Toughest job. Wow. I don't think there is a position like that. I think every job is almost as tough, but in different ways. The more you grow and the higher up you get, obviously the tougher the job gets, but you also have more experience under your belt. So I'm not to say that the first kid who comes in is as equally as terrified as the head chef is. So it's I think they're all equally hard.
Yeah, it's funny. I get a lot of answers of dishwasher and host. Those are pretty hard. I yesterday had Katie Button, who has most like tapas place, and she was like the dish pit there because it's so many dishes like that. So that's a pretty tough thing. But I've heard like grill chef and all that kind of stuff. But, but I couldn't do any of these jobs. Like I faced this long ago. I couldn't do any job in a restaurant. But yeah, that is pretty intense. Yeah. So what is your comfort food?
The worst food ever.
What is that? Come on.
I have one thing that I'm always like a little bit embarrassed as a chef to say that I do, but I love doing my nachos at home.
I love nachos. That is my comfort food. So how do you do them at home?
So nothing really chefy is about it. I think that's the worst part. That I buy my nachos, and there's tons of cheese on it. I do make my own meat sauce.
That
But
is chefy.
a little chefy, but then a lot of sour cream. But I pre-buy the salsa, so I cheat a little, and then yeah.
Oh, I love nachos. I love them so much. They're my stress food. They're absolutely. What is the last meal that you had that made you emotional?
I think going up to my boyfriend's mother for Thanksgiving, it's always nice to see someone who's a little bit scared, or like when people are scared to cook for you, and then they just throw out this like amazing food for like 20 people, and there's 2 of us coming, and it just breaks my heart when someone is doing that for me. And I guess like having a mom here, and then when my mom is back home in Sweden, it's just so sweet to have that.
And this is the lovely boyfriend who I met in Ireland. Oh, he's so lovely.
He is.
I'm so glad y'all are. Okay, good. Yay. I was hoping it was. Yay. Good. Well, actually, the next question I always ask is, what is the last time that somebody cooked for you in their home?
So that was it.
Because people are so afraid to cook for chefs.
Yes, they are, and I don't understand why. Even my own mother hardly wants to cook for me. She's like, "You cook tonight." I was like, "No, that's not why I'm here.
No, make me.
I want your food.
Make the thing I grew up eating."
And yeah, it's a little bit. I was like, I've loved your food for like the last my life. Right. Why wouldn't I love it now just because I'm a chef? It's just...
Dear Emma's mom, cook the girl some food. So what living musician who you haven't cooked for before would you want to cook for, and what would you make for them?
I would cook for Alicia Keys.
Oh, what would you cook for Alicia Keys?
I would do something seafood oriented, probably towards the healthy side a little.
She seems like she probably eats very carefully.
She actually has one of the best diets I can think of a celebrity ever having. She's very versatile in her food and what she eats, and she's very inspiring to me in that way, where she still seems to be a human being in all of those situations. Like she doesn't believe in diets or starving herself, and she believes that good food and healthy food is just part of your living. So I would probably do something with roots from Sweden, a little bit classic, but still really straightforward.
Dear Alicia Keys, I hope that happens. Like, she's so impressive. Like,
She is.
I really,
everything she does, and having, just believing in women and pushing everyone forward, and it's just, she's incredible.
I feel like this is going to happen. Like, now that you've said it after the universe, I think like this needs to happen. So we'll put it on Instagram. We'll do her. Final question. You have 5 uninterrupted minutes for self-care. What do you do?
It depends on where I am, I guess. If I'm at work, I normally lock the door to my office, and then I get a power nap.
You can power nap in 5 minutes?
Almost.
Wow. How did you learn? That's amazing.
But yeah, that's normally what you get before someone comes knocking on your door. So it's like you put your head down on your desk and close your eyes and just like go down. So
I want everybody listening to this to take 5 minutes now for a power nap. And I hope you get one today. I hope your situation has worked itself out while we've been locked in this room talking.
So too.
Yeah, you put a lot of good into the universe, and you deserve so much of it back. And I so if people are looking for you on social, how do they find you?
So I'm Emma _, and then my last name Bengtsson.
Okay, and that's on Twitter, on Instagram and all
I
that.
tried Twitter. I can't figure it out.
That's okay. It's like
so
you
hard.
pick your platform and do that one, and that is fine. But you're really good at Instagram, so
Thank you.
so that's good. And people can come to Aquavit and just find you in the universe and get to try your food, because I just think what you do is so special, and the example that you provide for chefs in the industry is such an important thing. So I want people to find you. So thank you so much to our guest today, Emma. And then let us say your name together, because you just said it in a way that Bengtsson. Sorry, that's very rude. I kept telling myself I would say it very properly, and that's the rudest thing. If we can cut that part where I say it incorrectly, because I think that's like an awful thing. Bengtsson.
Yes.
Emma Bengtsson. Thank you so much for being here today and for everything you do. And I know what a busy person you are. So this podcast, Communal Table, is part of Food and Wine Pro, which is a section on foodandwine.com and also out in the universe. We do, you can find us at events and all that kind of stuff, where we're really focusing on the industry and the people in it and how to make it a better place to work. We talk about everything from real estate to, the current Me Too climate and current and past Me Too climate, and sort of everything in between. And it's a really good, informative place where chefs are telling their stories, front of house people are telling their stories. And you can find all of those stories on foodandwine.com, or sign up for the Food and Wine Pro newsletter that our editor-in-chief, Hunter Lewis, writes. And I pinch hit every once in a while, but you can always find the latest podcast in there. There's an incredible meditation from our kitchen lead here in New York, Kelsey Youngman. It's a really beautiful thing. So please sign up for Food and Wine Pro. I want to thank our producers, Margot Gotthelf, who is new to the team, and Holly Tarpley and Jennifer Martnick and Douglas Wagner for our delightful theme song, to our audio and visual crew who make this look and sound great. Hey, people who are just listening to this on all the different platforms, you can look at it too on YouTube and on foodandwine.com. So, when you do find this on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you get your podcasts, those stars, those ratings, those comments, especially the good ones, really help people find us and help us continue to do what we're doing. And if you want to find me, I'm on Twitter all the dang time at Kitten with a Whip. If you want to tell me an issue you think we should be tackling, somebody you think I should be talking to, I'm pretty easy to find and I'm pretty responsive. So please reach out. And the most important thing here, take good care of yourself until the next time.